Hello and welcome back to Talk of the White Lotus.
You know, every episode I say to myself, I'm going to learn what the greeting is they all say.
Kapkumka, that one.
Yes, well, I don't want to guess.
I think it is like kapkuka.
It's like kamumka or something, but I always say I'm going to look it up and I never do. But imagine that I've done that greeting to you. Wouldn't that be authentic? I bloody love the White Lotus.
So do I. Thank goodness we're doing a whole series talking about it.
Yeah, it's convenient, isn't it? I'm Benedict Townsend.
And I will be Hannah Townsend. And this will be...
a mini-series from Talk of the Townsends where we talk about the latest season of the White Lotus, episode 3?
3. And we looked up, last series had 7 episodes because we're kind of getting into the meat of it.
Yes, and I want to jump off from that because, you know, there's one thing we've never done on this show, and that's repeat ourselves. But at the very risk of that, I just want to repeat to everyone online, because I've been seeing some grumbling, all right? There's 2 things you need to know about White Lotus. Number 1, it is a vibes-based show. It's about vibes. Number 2, the show is a coiled spring. Or snake, if you want to be relevant to this episode. But it's about coiling, and then you usually get all the action near the end. I see everyone online who's like, where's the explosions or whatever? Like, if we learned anything from this episode, the action is just around the corner. This was such a tightening the screws episode.
Something really struck me in the latest episode of The White Lotus is the use of clothing.
And clothing colour, because you were pointing this out to me.
I noticed the hotel manager was wearing a very interesting shirt, right? That almost had 3 sort of bullet holes in it. And I was like, are they alluding? The second I saw the shirt, I was like, that's a strange piece of clothing.
You know what I thought? I thought it looked like she'd had a pen in her top pocket and it had leaked.
It was giving Mean Girls, where they cut a little bit.
Yeah, or Mrs. Doubtfire.
But I was wondering, are they hinting that she is going to be one of the people that gets shot?
Or is it another one of the red herrings? Because, you know, this is like a blimmin' aquarium this season when it comes to red herrings. I feel like none of the people the show has made allusions to are actually going to get shot. And it's going to be someone really unlikely who gets shot.
Amy Lou every 2 seconds saying she's become this close to death twice. Do we think that that's another red herring?
The whole speech this episode where she's like, even if I die, I'll be with you in the next life and all that stuff. She's not dying, I don't think.
Amy Lou's styling is also standing out to me. She's got the necklace that says Stay Gold, which is very prominent, and I have noticed every single episode. I also thought the choice of Blondie written across her t-shirt was interesting. They're kind of, again, hinting, you know, she's a bit of a kind of blonde character.
Yeah, even though she's not blonde.
Even though she's not
blonde. The sort of
blonde
blonde stereotype.
She's the blonde stereotype character. I was like, are they tying that in there? The use of orange we've seen throughout the series. Is it kind of the monks tying in? The hotel manager had orange nails today that struck me. In the last episode, the girl that's part of the very weird family, she was wearing an orange swimsuit, which really stood out to us.
Well, it's funny because it's been standing out because you've been going, ooh, that's a lovely orange. Like, they're probably doing it thematically, but the end result is that everyone looks great.
Apparently orange is kind of a universal colour for looking good in.
Yeah, which I wouldn't have thought. Like, people should wear more orange. Also, not plot related, but Jason Isaacs was wearing an amazing yellow shirt this week.
We love that shirt.
Again, maybe thematic, but the main theme I saw was fashion, looking good.
Do you think they're trying to convey messages in clothing on White Lotus?
I think so. I mean, the show is very deliberate in everything it does, in all its imagery. It's one of the most beautiful things about the show. You know, there's not a single frame where they're not trying to say something. Even if it's not like super plot relevant, I think they're always trying to make some subtextual hints or whatever.
Sure.
I think the orange thing is definitely something.
Something. They also had the bracelet last week that everyone said they paused too long on, which was part of the robbery scene.
Yes.
So we think that's coming back at some point.
Someone's going to be wearing that.
Who's going to be wearing that bracelet? I think the vote online is it's going to be Lisa, right?
Yes, it's going to be Mook.
Mook. Do we think this series of White Lotus is being a little heavy-handed with the themes and imagery? The start with the dream and the tsunami of this episode.
Yeah.
And the kind of constant referring back to the tsunami that happened and the wave that was coming. I was a bit like...
because Jason Isaacs, it's almost like a storm is coming for him.
It seems too simple for White Lotus, right?
It does, yeah. I mean, there's usually a twist, double twist, or maybe an actual tsunami will hit this island or something. It seems very, obvious of like his wife having a dream about trouble on the horizon. It's like,
and when he was incredibly stressed, the boy showing this happened on the beach next to us. I was like, it's a little clunky in a way that we don't usually. I think White Lotus usually assumes a higher level of intelligence from its audience that you wouldn't need to be that like. This tsunami is kind of like the tsunami in his head. It's like. Yeah. I get it.
But I agree, and I have faith in the show that, again, that's part of the coiling of the spring.
Yes.
It's part of wrong-footing you, and like you think it's going to be this level. You know, again, I'm still so surprised by the way season 2 went. You know, you thought it was this, and then it turns out, oh no, it's this elaborate plot and all. So I'm going to keep my faith in Mike White that he's got something even more devious up his sleeve.
Speaking of the weird family, the no cell phone scene was incredibly good.
Jason Isaacs was on a different level this episode, playing stressed so much that I was getting stressed watching him, but also playing stressed where you're trying not to appear stressed to your family. Like, that's hard to do as an actor. He's playing levels there. Also, like, I love the writing, like the simple writing of, here is a guy who is being hounded by phone calls, but he's in an environment where phone calls aren't allowed. So not only is he stressed that he keeps getting calls, people keep snapping at him about going on his phone. Like, that's such wonderful layering of stress that he's like, I don't want people to be calling me. Also, my kids keep having a go at me. Like, it's so brilliant.
That scene between Jason Isaacs and his son, where his son was like, I love work. And he was like, you know, we all love work, but work's not the be all and end all. And it's very clear he is a man who his whole life up until this point has been work. So like, that is a bizarre thing for him to say. It was comedic. It was funny. I enjoyed it.
I love that moment where he didn't know what to say to his son. And he was like, I'm proud of you, son. Yeah. He was like, he's obviously never said it before. And he's like, in my desperation, I guess I have to say this.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't what he doesn't believe it in his heart. He's just like, that's the only road left to go is, I guess I believe in you, son.
Yeah.
So funny.
I believe in you. Let's put our phones away. And his son, who just works for his business, where he's like, I could really see you being boss one day. Is that, I guess, hinting at the fact that he's not going to be around, so hopefully he could take it over. I actually thought there was some really strong imagery in this episode of White Lotus. Jason Isaacs, as he was walking down, there was the trees either side of him. It almost felt like
they were closing in.
A bit
like
tsunami-esque. And then when him and his son were having the conversation, it was like there was a wooden structure almost. Again, kind of walls. It felt like this pressure was building. I thought that there were some really smart shots in this episode in particular.
Yeah. 100%. You know, that imagery, that sort of, you would call it like B-roll or whatever, that the show has, that very dream-like footage of like waves and leaves and all of that is so gorgeous. But also I think it plays such an important part in making this show feel so different, because when you're in a place like that, it does feel kind of dreamlike and special and glowy in a way that's actually quite difficult to capture on film unless you add slow-mo and music. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like when you see a beautiful sunset and try and take a picture of it, and it's like, it's just kind of a crap picture of the sun. It doesn't capture the like weird magic you get in person.
That kind of haziness when you've been in the sun all day and like everything's really beautiful and you're kind of sleepy and tired but happy.
Exactly. And I think this show is so good with those kind of strange poetic interstitials. I guess they're called, maybe, who knows. It's really good at like placing you there and placing you into how they feel.
I also really appreciate, you know, a lot of stuff that's made these days is like, we have to capture the audience every second. Something needs to be happening. It needs to be like this heightened at all times. Otherwise we lose people and they switch off and then the numbers go down or whatever. And I feel like giving us time to just sit in the world and be in the world with like just imagery of just the monkey, or, you know, there was that really beautiful shot in the pool that we really enjoyed. I really like that trust that it has, that the show is strong enough to pause.
Yes, and then not everything that's happening is part of some grand plot. Sometimes it's just a little event. Sometimes, you know, the plot with the daughter, Harper, you know, with her visiting that monk. I mean, that has got to be the most slow burn plot of all time.
It's taken her 3 hours just to go to the temple that they came all the way there to see.
Yeah, so far she has walked up to the temple but not entered, and now has entered the temple and made an appointment to come back later.
Yeah.
That's the entirety of her plot so far, apart from also just being weirdly objectified by her brothers.
Yes.
But like, they are slow burning that.
When I say 3 hours, I mean it's been 3 hours of the show. Obviously, like in real time, she's been there for like days before visiting this monk.
Well, you know, the thing is that every episode is one day. It starts with breakfast, ends at night. So she's been there 3 days. Still a long time, considering they all came here for that reason.
Exactly. Surely you'd be there day one. What caught me by surprise in this episode of White Lotus is that they left the resort. I kind of was in this bubble. I wasn't expecting us to go outside.
Yeah. When Walton Goggins was talking about like to go to Bangkok, we were like, do you think we'll see that? Maybe we will.
I turned to you and I said, do you think we're going to Bangkok as well? well. Or
Yeah, and I thought, well, maybe it'll be off screen and we never leave the resort, but we did.
We did. The snake.
Yeah, the snake show.
Yeah.
I guess we left it sort of when she wandered over to the temple, but that's like next door.
Yes, so that still felt very enclosed. The fact that they got on the buggy and then they were in this kind of different town.
But if they leave the island, that's even crazier.
Yeah, if we go to a completely different place.
Yeah. Do you think it's too on the nose that the youngest son in the family, his secret is that he's gay? Because I feel like there was some implication in this episode.
Yeah, I think we both felt that a couple of times at the same time. We were both like, is that what they're kind of going for here?
You've got the older brother who's obviously like hypersexual and always talking about like, we got to get you laid, we got to find you a girl. And he's obviously kind of a little bit on, doesn't seem super keen about that. And then there was sort of talk in this episode of like, you're guarded and you're in touch with your feminine side and all this. And just because, like being in touch with your feminine side has been a kind of shorthand in media for a long time to mean like a person is queer in some way. You could argue it's kind of a lazy shorthand, but that sort of is a sort of cliche.
Yeah.
So is that maybe what they're alluding to? But
I guess that coupled with, the fact that the brother is so set on getting him laid and he doesn't seem there for it. But also like, why would you be? Do you know what I mean?
It's like, I think most of us would be put off by the weird older brother.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm interested to see. It could go that way, or it could be that he's a bit of a creep.
I'm inclined to think that there's like a completely different direction, that's something more like, incestuous or something, because the show...
Talking of heavy-handed themes, it started with strong incest vibes, which we talked about in episode 1. So yeah, you're right. Like, is that what we're leaning towards?
It doesn't have the vibes, if you remember season 1 where there was the teen and he was on like a journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
And it was actually kind of uplifting. It doesn't have that vibe. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have the vibe of a young man finding his sexuality. It has the vibe of like some kind of fucked up situation.
Yeah.
So who knows where they're going with that, but he's got to fix that posture.
So in this episode of White Lotus, it was kind of confirmed to us that Rick, the hotel owner's husband, killed his dad, right?
That seems to be the prevailing theory.
Yeah.
Because he literally said something like, my dad was murdered and I can still get satisfaction. So it's like you put the pieces together.
Is that what we're going for then?
I'm not against that as a plot. That's quite fun.
I'm not against it as a plot, but I'm interested as to why they've laid that on so thick.
I guess not everything has to be a mystery. Sometimes it does just have to tell you the plot. But I agree that it's maybe just a bit straightforward of like, here's what he's going to do. But I imagine it's because in White Lotus fashion, there's going to be some double twist where actually that guy is someone else at the resort's dad, or that someone else will get in the way, or there's usually some kind of unfortunate domino effect that happens because of these things.
Right.
So maybe they're revealing this to us because it's going to have surprising consequences later on or something.
Okay. I guess I'd rather that they either came out and said something because it should be obvious that they're telling us a plot, or they don't want us to know and they want it to be revealed later. But yeah, when he was like, I can still get revenge or whatever, I was like, okay then.
Okay, I see what you're doing. There were two things in this episode of The White Lotus that like specifically dated the show, which is interesting. Like you assume the show takes place in the current day, but they specifically reference the Ukraine war and they specifically reference voting for Trump, which like very squarely puts the show at like now. I'm sure the last 2 seasons also took place in their respective years, but you could kind of blur them.
It's a bit more ambiguous, right?
Yeah, they took place in the present, whereas this show apparently takes place right now. And I thought it was interesting. I thought it's interesting to have like a Russian character and have them specifically call out like, like the Russian war.
Yeah.
And also to have a Republican character, well, independent, but, the illusion is there.
Yes.
She basically says she voted for Trump. And to specifically call out like, she voted for Trump or whatever. And like, I know there'll be some people who are like, keep the politics out of your TV or whatever. But I love that about this show because it's how real people talk. This stuff is going to come up eventually. You can't, even if you're millions of miles away, even if you're many miles away in Thailand, like, current affairs are going to come up. And I thought it was good. And I didn't think it felt forced.
With the 3 women around the Trump voting, I just thought it was interesting that even though they're thousands of miles away in a small resort, that like the outside issues are still relevant. They're still there.
Well, it's like that thing people say, which I guess is one of the themes of the show, which is like, you can travel as far as you want, but you're still you. Do you know what I mean? You can't ever escape who you are. But that whole conversation got us to the fabled third bitching conversation. It finally happened. We completed the triangle.
I mean, we were right when I said name the bitchiest to the least bitchiest.
Yeah.
You were correct. We hit all three on the sticker chart that we saw the combo of two women bitching about the other that we hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
One bit that really made me laugh where one of the women was telling the story and she was like, and he had a son and his son was a man. Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, when they were talking about how religion is very like male dominated, and he had a son and the son's a man.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. Funny to have 3 out of 3 now in terms of bitchiness. And how did they not see her standing there?
I know.
If someone came out on that balcony and my spidey senses weren't aware that someone had literally opened a door, my little eyes would have been flickering over there for sure, especially if we were bitching about someone who I knew was asleep across the way. I would like...
Your senses are heightened when you're bitching.
Of course, yeah. You need to be extra vigilant.
And also, when it cut to them, the first thing they were doing was looking over their shoulder.
How did they not see her?
Also, you know when she came out to the balcony and was watching them bitching and she was looking so sad, I'm like, come on, lady, you have done so much bitching. Like, I know it sucks to see your friends bitching about you, but if I was her, I'd be like, you know what, game recognized game. I've laid down quite a lot of bitching on this holiday. I guess I deserve a little bit back.
It's funny that it still hurts each of the 3 women who've been bitched about. Like, they almost don't believe that the bitching is happening about them.
Yeah.
You know, you see it in their... Well, hang on a second, you know, especially with the actress, she's like, I paid for this. I brought these women here and now they're chatting about me. And then it brings you back to like, well, I was talking to her about her. You're lulled in for a couple of seconds that you two are the best and the most powerful and it's the other one that's the problem. And then it kind of goes back on you and you're still shocked even though you shouldn't be.
Well, it's that classic selfish, self-obsessed mentality, which is very common in the modern world of like, well, I can do bad things, but I don't want the bad things to happen to me.
That's not fair.
I love sowing, but I don't like reaping, or however that phrase goes.
You reap what you sow.
Yeah.
In this episode, everyone was talking about going on a boat the next day, right?
Yes.
And is it Gary's boat? And if it is Gary's boat, is it the one where all the murders happened in last episode? Is that what they are hinting at?
I think so. And obviously Gary is Greg.
Yes, Gary is Greg.
As Belinda called out.
Yes.
I like that Belinda called him out, but also I'm like, Belinda, no.
Yeah.
Belinda, stay away from danger, no. Because, you know, she was making it way too bait that she knew his deal. And if I was her, I'd be like staying a million miles away. I'd be like, I've got my nice potential Thai boyfriend. I don't want to get murdered by Greg.
These women, though, need to be asking more questions. If I was sat next to you and someone came up and was like Benjamin or something and then mentioned a place that I probably knew you'd been to, I'd have been like, surely that is you.
I know, they kind of hand waved it by having his girlfriend be like, I told you all bald men look the same or whatever. But I mean, I guess that's why these men choose these kinds of partners, because they don't ask questions. I keep thinking this about Amy Lou.
Yes.
I'm like, why did she put up with this? But I'm like, but that's why they're together.
Yeah.
Because anyone else would have left him by now.
Yeah. Why did you let those snakes out? Why are you so desperate to go to Bangkok? You know, what is going on?
Yeah.
I'm the same. I could not let it rest, especially like at that breakfast scene where he was like, find another person. I'd be like, what does that mean? Do you want me to go off with someone else?
Yeah. That's why she's the perfect partner for him, because anyone who had those questions would be done with him and he would jettison, because he clearly doesn't care about these people at all. So weirdly, I do think they are kind of soulmates, because she just doesn't leave him and he's like, okay.
She puts it down to their star signs.
Yeah. Although he had that funny line where he's like, we're not even compatible.
Well, but if someone was saying that to me, I would cry and leave. Do you know what I mean? You're hinting so heavily that you don't want me.
She's weirdly bulletproof in a way I kind of admire.
Yes.
Like, she just takes everything on the chin.
I feel, though, her character arc is that she's not going to be as dumb as she's coming across.
No, not at all.
Dumb is maybe a little bit extreme, but they're pinpointing her as like being a bit oblivious.
Airheaded.
Yeah, it is. You know, she's a very likable character. But I do think that they're going in heavy on that she's just away with the fairies, not asking questions like, why would you need to go to Bangkok? What is going on in Bangkok? Like, if we were on a holiday somewhere and you said you were going to leave to go to another place, like, I wouldn't let it rest.
No, you would not. And fair enough.
Yeah.
Every episode, I'm just like, Gaytok, the guard, I'm like, this poor sweet boy is going to get so murdered or something. Bad things are happening to this guy.
The worst thing in the world is when your boss sends you an email that's like, hi, or puts a meeting in your diary that's just like catch up, or or, hey, have you got 5 minutes? And then doesn't reply to you. The fact that they were like, we need to talk in the morning about what happened.
And then he was like, can I just ask if it's bad news? And he was like,
let's talk in the morning.
So mean. When your boss puts in a 5 minute with you and then you're like, oh my God, I'm getting fired. And then they're like, how do you like change the printer ink? And you're like, you don't realize how scary this is.
It's so stressful. It's a sign of good management when they always say nothing wrong.
Yeah.
That is a real sign. But because I felt anxiety in my heart for him when they were just like, let's just talk in the morning, because you just know he's going to have a sleepless night.
I had a manager who used to do that when I first started working, because we were quite young and anxious, and he would be like, we're having a full team meeting, brackets, no one's getting fired. And it was like kind of a joke, but also it's like, no, we would like to know if we're all getting fired, please.
Yeah.
Keep that clear.
Yeah, let's lay it out on the tables. It is always when I've also had managers that do that and then they don't say everything's going to be okay, and then it is bad news.
Yeah.
For like someone or something's happened and you're like, oh God, if they've said it 99 times and this one time they haven't mentioned everything's okay.
I've got a really dark theory, which I don't want to happen, but like he's such a nice guy and he's in love with her. She's kind of spurning him. Everyone's like having a go at him. Do you think he might snap and like he does like a shooting? He becomes like an incel guy.
Well, I feel like we've got a way to go.
He's got to travel a distance.
It would be a real turn out for the books. I mean, he might feel hard done by if he's dedicated his life to this. Like, I don't know, incel, just because one girl rejected him and then maybe he's going to get fired. I fear that's 0 to 100, but I could see him getting...
You don't know incels, my friend. They need less than that. Yeah.
By the... maybe he'll connect with the young boy and something will happen there.
He's just a very downtrodden guy, and I just wonder if he's going to have like a snap moment.
Shall we wrap it up then?
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about this endlessly. It's such a great show. But of course, we have to go. We've got a diamond fitting to get to.
What do you mean?
That's just the kind of lifestyle we lead. I want them to think we're fancy people.
I've got to let a couple of cobras out of their cage.
And I'm going to get stung by them. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to follow the show.
Yeah, and rate it.
Yeah, rate the show.
We never ask for ratings.
Rate it well.
Oh yeah, only rate it 5 stars.
Yeah, like
don't bother rating it if you're not going to rate it 5 stars.
Come along rating it 4 stars. Get out of here. 5 stars, like the White Lotus Resort.
Anyway.
Have a great week, guys.
Bye.